Welcome into the All City Media live at the Winter Meetings here in San Diego. I'm Patrick Lyons from DNVR Rockies.
Jesse Friedman from PHNX.
And obviously, I'm Ryan Herrera from CHGO Cubs.
You're the star right now because we're going to talk about the Chicago Cubs and their pitching situation. It seems like Marcus Stroman was obviously the guy last offseason as their big signing. Then Justin Steele popped his head out there and looked really solid. Between those two guys, is that where you think the 2023 opening day starter lies at this moment?
At the moment, as of who's on the roster, yeah, because I would have said like Kyle Hendricks. He's been the opening day starter for the last 3 years.
Wow.
But he didn't pitch the last half of the season. He may not even be healthy enough to go right away. Like I think the hope is that he is. But he's also like not been very good the last couple seasons. So it's like he may not be your in your top three of starters. If you're ideal scenario, he may be more of your fourth or fifth in the Cubs rotation at this point. So I think as far as what the Cubs have on the roster now, it's Stroman or Steele for opening day. It's one of those two guys. It's still a long way to go, a long way away from opening day, but those are the two guys that, as of right now, are probably one of those is going to be locked in for opening day at this point.
Before we get to a potential third option, is it a spring training kind of battle to see who gets opening day? Who pitches better, or you're going to go with the veteran guy probably over the youngster?
That's my guess, right?
And that's my guess too. Like if it were to come down to it, like nothing else considered, just like you want to go to a veteran guy or a guy who had a really good year, but is also like not even a full 2 seasons into the big leagues. It'd probably go Stroman, probably, but it could be a battle where like Justin Steele takes a huge leap. Even this offseason has a great spring training, and then David Ross. Even if it's like who they face the Brewers opening day, is there a lefty heavy lineup that they might want to go Justin Steele? Like there's a bunch of different variables that go into it, I would say. But as far as just like veteran versus youngster, probably go with a veteran. So I think Stroman may have the edge right now. But it is a good conversation as far as like again, Justin Steele took leaps and bounds better. By the end of the season, he kind of had to shut things down towards the end, but had a really good, first like 5-ish months before he got shut down. And Stroman did, had a great second half himself, but Justin Steele, it's like he's rising. Can he rise up enough by end of March to kind of take that number one starter for the Cubs again, as far as where they're at right now and who's on the roster?
In my experience, it feels like it takes even a few years sometimes for like the young up and coming pitcher to like take over the role of opening day starter. I mean, the Diamondbacks, they had Madison Bumgarner as their opening day starter this last year, and he was probably the worst starting pitcher on the team when all was said and done. So seniority can play a significant role, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So Stroman, obviously, he's getting paid like he should be an A. So you think he can step up? Steele can continue. Maybe he's got another level up that he can go. And Hendricks getting back to form, at least somewhat. That's a very formidable 1, 2, 3 in a rotation. And in NL Central, I mean, that potentially could be good enough to win the division. That being said, Stroman, Steele, is there a third candidate? There's been some discussion that the Cubs, in addition to a big shortstop, one of the big four that they're going to go after, that they also might target a frontline starting pitcher as well.
Yeah. So actually, Mark Feinsand put out there this morning, Jameson Taillon. He said the market is deep, but sources have the Mets, Phillies, Cubs, and Orioles among the teams to watch, and that's been rumored for a little while. I think we've kind of seen that Jameson Taillon is like his market is getting a little hotter than maybe even was expected, kind of heading into free agency. But that there are a lot of suitors and a lot of people like what he did, and what he's done. And so if the Cubs are involved in that, like that's a good starter to add. I like off the top of my head thinking about it, like I don't know that he jumps like a Marcus Stroman or Justin Steele,
like a number 4-ish starter.
I'd say I think he'd be like a good 3,
maybe a number 3.
He might even be better than that. Like if he has a good year, whatever. I don't know that he leaps in front of Marcus Stroman or even Justin Steele at that point. But that's another good like thought exercise of like what is adding a guy like that or a guy like Chris Bassitt. I know we've talked about like Verlander or Marcus Rodon. Doesn't feel like the Cubs are involved in that part of the market, the top tier frontline ace starter. But these guys that are maybe a little more mid tier, Kodai Senga as another guy that they haven't been as connected recently, but they have been in conversations. They have a good relationship with his agent, so they may still be just in the conversation till the end, even if the bidding war kind of goes past what they want to do. So he's an option. Again, we talked Taillon, Chris Bassitt. Like there's a number of guys in that like tier that the Cubs could feasibly go after, but then again, it comes back to like, I don't know that they automatically become the Cubs' #1 starter next season.
Sounds like Marcus Stroman is your opening day starter, pretty much no matter what, right?
It sounds like at this point, like today, I would probably say he's your opening day starter. But again, like I said, there's a long time till March 30th, I think, is opening day. So still got a while to go at that point.
Yeah, if you go after and acquire Kodai Senga, again, I don't think him coming over here to the U.S.
Yeah, you're probably not going to put that pressure on him.
Stroman, right?
Yeah.
No.
Also, I can't think of a team really that's had two more high-profile Japanese players on the same team, let alone in back-to-back off seasons that you make that kind of transaction. So that would be unique. Taillon, you're right, would be more in the middle of the rotation guy. But there is one name in there that you mentioned besides Verlander and Rodon, who are going to be a lot pricier. And if they're already targeting one of the shortstops, even if it's the fourth cheapest, if you will, of the four guys that are out there, you're going over 100, 150, maybe even close to 200 million.
Yeah.
Similar to the shortstop market was like last offseason. But would Chris Bassitt be one of those guys that could go ahead and slot up and be your #1 guy and maybe take a little more pressure off of Marcus Stroman, who, he came in last year and, Hendricks was kind of the heir apparent in a sense, but Stroman was brought in maybe to be the savior. Could Chris Bassitt be that guy on opening day?
That's something I could see.
Yeah.
Because he is, he's older than Marcus Stroman. I think he's like 34, maybe 35, something like that.
Yeah.
And he's been a very good pitcher, like last few years. Like he's been a good pitcher, and I can see, being on the Mets, he wasn't gonna usurp DeGrom or even Max Scherzer for that opening day start.
Yeah.
But there's no DeGrom or Max Scherzer on the Cubs right now. Stroman is not at that level. He's a good pitcher. He's not at that ace level. So it could ultimately be Chris Bassitt comes in. Again, he's a veteran starter, knows what he's doing, and comes in, has a really good spring training. If that's what, if the Cubs do end up signing him, and then he may be a guy that like, okay, opening day. Then again, Stroman's been on the team for a year. Maybe has like, I know David Ross feels loyalty to his players, and for good reason. Like,
right.
You want as players, they want the manager to be loyal to them and treat them well, and you do for me, I do for you kind of thing. So maybe just because Stroman has been there for a year, has been a good clubhouse presence, has had a great second half, that may even still be like, okay, like let this guy that's been here for a little bit, he could take opening day. Maybe where it comes down to, where Chris Bassitt's the new guy. He may end up being the best starter out of that bunch, but he doesn't take opening day. I do kind of think opening day is a little overrated. Not overrated, but as far as like,
sure,
it doesn't ultimately mean a whole lot in the end of it. Like you're just the first, you're first guy in the rotation.
Starts the first game, when it's all said and done.
But it is like, it is kind of a badge of honor for guys. Like being the opening day starter is something guys strive for, because that means you're, as far as the starters go in your rotation, you are looked at as the best of them, and that's obviously a badge of honor, a goal for guys. But I could still see David Ross saying, Stroman, you've been here for a year, you kind of earned this spot. Go ahead and run with it and see what happens.
Verlander and Rodon would be the only two you can definitively say.
Yeah.
They get the opening day start right now on this market with DeGrom being off the table.
I would think so. I think those are the two guys that like ace level frontline starters, #1, no doubt about it. Go ahead and take opening day. Those are the only two I'd say, like right off the bat, they come into the Cubs today, would ultimately be the opening day starter.
I think the Chris Bassitt market is interesting because he has draft pick compensation tied to him. And so, the CBA didn't get rid of that. They tried, but they were not able to do that. So it'll be interesting to see, how much that factors into his market. And, I don't know if you have a feel on what the Cubs would think about that, giving up a draft pick to try to get a guy like Bassitt.
I'm not sure. I know that I think maybe a little more, they might be a little more open to that because they will get the draft pick back through Wilson Contreras, the qualifying offer they extended to him.
Yeah,
they are going to get a draft pick back. So maybe that, that would balance it out, where they lose one signing whoever, but then they're going to get one back as far as Wilson Contreras goes, wherever he signs.
They're going to lose one with one of the shortstops.
Yeah. Well, Carlos Correa is not tied to the qualifying offer.
Because he had gotten it last time.
Exactly.
So that puts him back on the board. I know that's kind of your preference over Xander Bogaerts, who is the guy right now that the Cubs seem to be targeting. So that would fit in there where it cancels out, like you said, and you don't lose that pick.
Yeah. So the qualifying offer, I think they may be a little more open to it than leading on. But it's also like, you're the Cubs, you're a big market team. Like, you're signing a really good player. You don't like the draft pick. would you rather have a draft pick for next year for a guy that's not going to affect your team for like another however many years, or would you rather have a really good starting pitcher next year? At this point, it's like you're trying to be competitive next year, and you're trying to build something where you're competitive next year and in the years ahead. The draft pick, you will find other guys to draft. There are 20 rounds in the MLB draft. You'll find someone else you could draft. Go ahead and get this guy and worry about the draft pick later.